Coast.
Yes, and Lynn, I want to help clarify a little bit there. That was, we were speaking with on the Weather Channel, we spoke with Dale Grant with the USGS, and what he was talking about was putting in perspective the scale, the magnitude scale, and how you go from 1 point, like a 5 to a 6, it's 10 times worse. And so it's exponential as you move up the ladder here. So you go from an 8.9 that we saw in Japan, and the Haiti is a 7. So he's saying his point there, you go basically 2, and it's actually a little bit more, but 100 times bigger in that sense. When you're going by the 1 through, 9 or whatever on the scale, it goes up higher than that. But that's what he's talking about. But as you were saying, you had the other guest that was talking about that depending on the force, what you're talking about or the energy, it can be even more than that. So the bottom line here is that it is huge. This is it's one of the great earthquakes. I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, but in recorded history, there's only been 4 stronger. And we're talking about the Chile, 9.5. That's the strongest one we could find according to USGS. A 9.5 earthquake is the strongest, and we're talking about an 8.9. This is huge.
Yeah, we got that report from the USGS as well, that this is the 5th strongest earthquake in the world since 1900. And, Chris, you look at this video, I'm sure you have a feed of our broadcast here on MSNBC. You look at this video of the area of the Miyagi prefecture where that tsunami struck, 13-foot tsunami, and just the absolute devastation. We saw somebody standing out of their window waving a white flag. You see these cars that are floating along the debris, just the breadth of the debris. You almost can't get your head around it.
Yeah, it's certainly tough. I can't actually see that feed, but I have been seeing some of the video we've been showing coming to us from CNBC Asia, and it's been absolutely amazing. Some of the first video we saw, and actually I'm looking at some of the video right now and seeing, the cars that just kind of been tossed around as if they were Matchbox cars just kind of thrown in a puddle. It's absolutely amazing showing you the force of what this water can do with the tsunami. And also, Len, we were looking at some of the first video. You saw the debris coming into some of the fields, and some of the debris was on fire. I mean, this is absolutely amazing, the extent of this. And also, when we were talking to the USGS, talking about how Japan, some of the most stringent building codes when it comes to, erecting the buildings. They know they're in an earthquake-prone area, and so they build accordingly. But what he was saying, one of his biggest concerns will be the gas lines, the ruptures from, underneath the ground. It's not necessarily, it's part of the infrastructure, but might not necessarily be part of the building itself.
And we saw a little bit of that in the earlier video that we were showing, just that massive explosion at some of those oil wells and how serious that can be, because as one of our reporters told us, they're not going to be able to put that out for some time. This is something that they have a concern about spreading.
Yeah, I mean, you have all sorts of complications. I mean, when you have your infrastructure starting to break down, you're talking about putting out oil, that's a challenge in itself, and it's such a huge scale. It's a massive scale, and we're only seeing, this is still early, I mean, we're only seeing whatever video is starting to trickle in at this point, so we don't have a full scope of exactly how big this is, and now a lot of our attention is focusing, as it should be, to the U.S., and we're wondering now about Hawaii. There is a tsunami warning in effect for Hawaii. And Washington, Oregon coast, there's a watch that's been issued at 7:24, expecting the water to reach there, or at least some level rises by 7:24 on the Pacific, or on the West Coast. So this is something that's going to be developing that we're going to have to keep a close eye on as it continues to propagate away from Japan.
Chris, what do folks there need to know?
Listen to your authorities. That's number one. I mean, you never know exactly how it's going to interact with the terrain once it gets there. So you need to heed the warnings and do what your authorities tell you to do. I mean, a lot of people will want to go, this is cool, let's go take a look at it. Let's take some pictures and tweet about it. But you have to fight that urge, and you have to move inland. You have to move to higher ground. And that's the other thing is, I don't know if you have friends or families that might be, or family that might be vacationing in Hawaii. You might want to give them a call and say heads up, because maybe not everybody's in front of a TV. Maybe someone's out camping. There's a lot of great beaches in Hawaii you can camp on. So give your family a call, give your friends a call that you might be on the islands. And that's definitely what you want to be doing right now, is taking the utmost precaution. And then once we see what happens, once it reaches Hawaii, then we have to start worrying about the west coast of the United States. And again, already Washington and Oregon, there is a watch currently in effect.
It's my understanding that the concern, the possibility probability of any impact of a tsunami in the Hawaii area would be around 5 a.m. Eastern time. Is that your understanding as well?
I have 3 o'clock Hawaii time.
Right.
So did you do the math? Does that work out?
No, that would actually be 4 a.m. Wait, that would actually be 6 a.m. Eastern time if it were 3 a.m. Hawaii time.
Yes, that's what I have. I'll double check the latest here in a second, but yeah, and I'll get back to you as soon as I find out the
3 a.m.
specifics on
local
that.
time. Can you give us an idea of what we can expect next? We've talked with some of the experts, and I know you've been on the phone with some of the experts about the aftershocks and what some of the things that we are concerned about. Can you give us an idea of what some of the things that the experts you've talked to have said?
The main thing they've said is, I mean, because this is a great earthquake, this is a huge earthquake, we could still see aftershocks as strong as Haiti. Magnitude Haiti aftershocks. So, I mean, you have buildings that may initially be kind of joggled a little bit because of the initial 8.9 magnitude earthquake, and we can still see more of these aftershocks that could happen a few days from now.
And I just want to clarify. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to clarify Hawaii being 5 hours behind us. So if it were to hit here on the East Coast at 5 a.m., it would be midnight local time there.
I'm sorry.
Hawaii being 5 hours behind the East Coast, and that if it were to hit 5 a.m. on the East Coast, as far as when we can expect it, the time frame that we're given, then that would be around midnight Hawaii time.
Well, the time I gave you, the 2:59, is Hawaii time.
Ah, I see. So maybe we have some misinformation over here. Okay, so
I'll double check.
Okay.
I mean, I'm running around here talking to different people and stuff, so I will double check all of our and we'll regroup here in a second and figure out exactly what we have. But that's what I have. I write everything down in local time, and what I wrote down was 2:59 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time as far as when we can expect that to hit.
Well, you make an interesting point about these aftershocks because they could hit at a significant magnitude of what we would say is a huge earthquake.
We would. I mean, initially, the first report that came out, the preliminary earthquake was a 7.9. That's what we first saw. And on the Weather Channel, we went on breaking news saying there's a 7.9 in Japan, and we were like, that's huge. That's a big earthquake. And then a little while later, after reporting this for a while, we see 8.8. And it was like, wow, we have to double check this. I mean, really?
Right.
We're checking all, you were right at the USGS website, and it says 8.8. And then a little while later, now they're saying it 8.9. So, I mean, this is huge. And so just the fact that you're in the sevens is enormous.
Chris,
so, I mean, we're talking about a huge earthquake.
Why the difference? How did it make such a significant jump?
Because what I was told by Dale Graham with the USGS, when you have these big earthquakes, you have all the instruments. You have the instruments that they're all over the place to register wherever you might have some movement. And the instruments closest to the epicenter, there's going to be a little bit of noise. They're going to peg. Like, if you're looking at, remember the old instruments for measuring your record player? You have your the needle that goes up. When you play it really loud, it goes into the red, and it kind of crackles a little bit. So you get it pegging, it goes way over, and it's kind of, hanging out over there. You're not going to get an accurate reading. So then you're going to have to go and look at the stations or the instruments that are away from that, and you get a clearer picture, so not as much noise. And so you look at those instruments, is what he was telling me, and that's how you get a better idea of what it is. Because it's noise, so it pegs out, and it's hard to read the instruments, essentially.
One of the things that some of the experts have been talking about is just how, in some ways, lucky an area like Tokyo is because they're prepared for an earthquake, and that's a significant thing because we've seen at the Haiti earthquake that was really the death of that country because it was so unprepared. Their structures were so weak that they could not sustain that kind of earthquake. Is that something that you think is really significant for something like Tokyo where we're just seeing buildings sway? We're not seeing them fall to the ground.
That's exactly right. I mean, I've heard some professors in geology, they say earthquakes don't kill people. Buildings kill people. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Two opposite ends of the spectrum. You have Haiti, and then you have Japan. You have the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Rim. It's very earthquake prone. It's very geologically active. And so their codes are, as I was told, some of the best in the world. Whereas Haiti